good day. How you going? What do you know? Don't strike a light. Good day. And how you going? Just say good day, and you'll be right.
Welcome to the Midweek End Times News and Trends Briefing as we share major events and what is happening around the world as it relates to Bible prophecy. Today's date is Wednesday, August 2nd, 2017. There's going to be a wide range of different topics in today's briefing. To start off with, out of the Jerusalem Post, there was this article that talks about how Israel may need to take out Iranian bases in Syria. So this talks about how Israel may need to take military action to prevent Iran or Hezbollah from setting up permanent bases in Syria, former National Security Council head Yaakov Amador said on Monday. Amador's comments came a day after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told a journalist in Paris that Israel was opposed to Syrian ceasefire brokered by the U.S. in Syria because it perpetrates Iran's military presence in the country. If Israel's interests are not taken into account by those determining what future arrangements will be in Syria, the Americans, Russians, and others might lead to the IDF to intervene and destroy every attempt to build permanent Iranian infrastructure in Syria, he said. Armadag goes on to say that we will not let the Iranians and Hezbollah be the forces that will win the very brutal battle in Syria, and then moved on to the focus onto Israel. He said, up to until now, the Israel has been very careful to stay out of the war in Syria, saying it will only intervene, and indeed only has intervened to protect the red lines Netanyahu had established. The game-changing weaponry is not transferred to Hezbollah via Syria, and that Hezbollah and Iranian troops are not on the border with Israel, and that the Iranians do not establish permanent bases in Syria. He goes on to say that the ceasefire plan was made without taking into sufficient consideration of Israel's need to defend itself. At the end of the day, it is our responsibility, not the responsibility of the Americans or Russians, to guarantee ourselves that we will take all the measures that are needed for that. Explaining how the Americans and Russians, which Israel has good ties and a dialogue, agreed to deal that will allow a permanent Iranian presence in Syria. Amador said that the Russians' strategic goal in the ceasefire was to ensure that Assad's regime remains, and that the American strategic goal was to destroy Islamic State. Israel, he said, needs to take care of its strategic goals, which is defining keeping Iran and Syria from building launching pads in Syria. Amador also said that while Israel obviously wants to see the killing in Syria end, the price can't be having Iran and Hezbollah at our borders. He said that Israel has both diplomatic and military options to keep this from happening, and he said that both options should be used. Amador also attributed Iran's current success in the regime to the Iran nuclear deal signed 2 years ago, and he said that Iran is implementing strategy that for the first time in modern history places them on the cusp of establishing the land corridor from Tehran, built through Baghdad to Damascus and the Mediterranean. The ability of the Iranians to do what they're doing now in Syria and Iraq will be involved in Syria and Iraq and their relations with Hezbollah. It's all built on legitimacy and gained from its nuclear agreement. Amador also said that very much in the Iranians' interest to abide by the agreement, since the meantime that they're changing the contours of the entire Middle East. After the period of the agreement ends, which they can dash to the nuclear finish line with their strategic situation in the region considerably improved, as well as their ability to withstand any new wave of sanctions. The agreement is the source of all the problems. That is even more dangerous than we imagined when signed. And this is something we've mentioned time and time again, how horrible this nuclear deal was, something that shouldn't have been made. Anyways, but what's interesting about this article, again, it puts more of another piece of the puzzle of what the eventual Ezekiel 38 war is discussing. This will be the direction where there will be some invasion coming into Israel. So this is why this piece of information is important to know. On another issue in dealing with Israel, but it's more of a recognition of a Palestinian state. The Australian Labor Party, which is kind of like the Democrat Party in the U.S., but the Labor Party votes to recognize Palestinian state, according to the Times of Israel. So the members of the Australian New South Wales Labor Party voted in recognition of a Palestinian state following a push by former Australian Foreign Minister Bob Carr. The resolution was watered down ahead of the conference on Sunday in Sydney and failed to follow its original call for the unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. Carr, who has also served as Labor Premier in New South Wales, proposed the resolution. Federal Labor leader Bill Shorten has come under pressure to confirm his stance on the matter as the vote called into next federal Labor government recognize Palestine as an independent state. Following the heels of a similar resolution in the states of Western Australia and South Australia, the vote will present a challenge for Shorten when he heads to the Federal Labor Conference next year. Speaking on this on Monday, Shorten said that any recognition needs to be addressed concerns on both sides. There are two issues. One is a legitimate aspirations, and I stress the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinians to have their own state, and I do support that, according to Shorten. But also the legitimate aspirations of the people of Israel to live in secure borders. So he reiterated his support of the federal long-held position of a two-state solution in Israel-Palestine conflict. And if you support a two-state solution, ultimately that includes the recognition of Palestine, Shorten said. The New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies, Vice Chief Executive, said that the resolution passed on Sunday and is a much better outcome than was originally proposed in the conference booklet, and we applauded the efforts by many within the Labor Party who worked hard to achieve more balanced resolution. The Executive Council of Australian Jewry issued a statement saying, clearly Israel still has many friends within the Australian Labor government and are to be applauded for ensuring Bob Carr's original motion, which was significantly amended before it was passed. The amendment recognized Israel's right to exist within the secure borders. It's disturbing that the original motion moved by a former minister of Australia was so manifestly one-sided and unfair. One of the things, again, the Palestinian people, again, with the boss and his deteriorating health, so it'd be interesting who replaces him, which changes a lot of things there. But a vote for a Palestinian state is a vote against Israel and the Jewish people, because the Palestinian people do not want to have the security of the Jewish people. Their goal is to destroy the Jewish people and the nation of Israel. They don't want to see it that state to exist. So this is why this is going to be that contention that's continuing on within this whole conflict, within this Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Anyways, speaking of Australia on another subject, on another issue, and it's more of a science issue, but you see the fraud behind this whole climate change and this whole, whatever you want to call that, global warming. But Australian Weather Bureau caught tampering with climate numbers, according to the Daily Caller. This is something that's very common within the science in dealing with this whole issue of global warming, climate change, or whatever else they have labeled it. It is a propaganda. This is why. They're trying to move data to fit their particular belief. And if you don't believe in climate change or exactly what science goes against it, you're not going to get the funding for your program, for your university or organization or whatever you have. This is why they say so many scientists agree with it. Actually, science does not agree with them. It's an agenda. It's a political agenda behind it all. It's propaganda. So this is kind of one of those issues where you can see that continues to be developed around the world, this conversation. And again, there's even what they call carbon tax here in Australia and other places around the world that are trying to implement this. Taxing the people more is not going to help this carbon, issue. But it's an agenda. It's a money-making agenda. This is partly why they continue to beat the drum on this situation. Anyways, on another article, this was quite interesting. It's something that affects our culture and society, and that is the issue of entitlement. There's an article that popped up there. But what I found interesting of this is that, and not that I'm into secular psychology or humanism or any of that rubbish. When I was in college, I had to take a lot of psychology classes. I have a minor degree in social science, and it was interesting yet frustrating at the time because I was a young Christian. And the things that I was being told in the classrooms and reading those reports and books and stuff, the Bible speaks what the issues truly are, and it speaks out against some of the things that they're reporting. But it was interesting to understand the mind and the behavior and the emotions, and so some of those things were practical and insightful. Anyways, there's an article that popped up in today's news that talked about how psychologists say more and more young people are entitled. And I'm reminded of the passage in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, which says, "But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. Men will be lovers of themselves." This is that entitlement attitude. Lovers of money, boasters, proud. Those are also part of the entitlement mentality. Blasphemous, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanders, without self-control, brooders, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. From such people turn away. Anyways, this article has some interesting insights, and also there's another article that they attached into it from Psychology Today. But it says that this research has discovered large amounts of young people are developing an entitlement complex. The psychological trends comes from the belief that they are superior to others and more deserving of certain things. This form of narcissism has some significant consequences such as disappointment and tendency to lash out. According to Psychology Today, and I'll mention this report in just a moment, reports that some of the examples of entitlement range from disregard of rules, freeloading, causes of inconveniences, and likes to assume the role of leader when working in groups. The so-called millennials, those who were born during 1988 and 1994, tend to have this characteristics, as the 2016 study have found. The University of Hampshire found that youngsters who were studied on this issue of entitlement scored 25% higher than the people of 40 to 60 years old, and 50% higher than those who were over that age bracket. Dr. Joshua Grubbs, who conducted the research, which was published in Psychological Bulletin, is quoted by Spring saying, "The extreme levels of entitlement is a toxic narcissistic trait, repeatedly exposing people of the risk of feeling frustrated, unhappy, and disappointed with life. Oftentimes, life, health, aging, and social world do not treat us like we like. Confronting these limitations is especially threatening to an entitled person because it violates their worldview of self-superiority." The study looked at 170 cases, determined that entitlement leads to a cycle of disappointment, anger, negativity, constant need for the person to tell themselves that they're special. Professor Julie Exlain, who was involved in the study, added that the system only creates more issues and can lead to problems with other people. The entire mindset pits someone against other people, and when people think that they should have everything that they want, often for nothing, it comes at the cost of relationships with others and ultimately their own happiness. In order to break from this mentality, experts believe that individuals should learn to become more humble, which is a biblical trait, more grateful or thankful, which is also a biblical trait, and accept their limitations. Psychology Today also offers alternatives to solving the problem. These include retrospect, reflecting on annoying incidents from someone else's perspective, like put yourself in their shoes, promote others' achieving, and the stopping justifying things to yourself that are wrong. So within that article, again, as Psychology Today had this article that talked about 9 types of entitlement tendencies and how to overcome them. So this is what that article was alluding to. For example, one of the tendencies of entitlement is you expect the same rules that apply to others shouldn't apply to you. For example, other people might need to start at the bottom and work their way up, but you shouldn't have to. That's self-entitlement. Another idea would be you expect other people to be more interested in you and what's on your agenda than you're interested in them and what's on their agenda. You see your own interests and are more interested than others, or you see your goals and dreams as more valid or more important than others. Another self-entitlement mentality that comes up is you disregard rules that are intended for everyone's comfort. For example, you ignore signs to please not put your feet on the chairs at the movies. You just do whatever you want type mentality. Another one is you inconvenience others without thinking. For example, you cancel appointments, make reservations repeatedly, or you make plans with friends and then you bail on those plans without considering that your friends may have organized other plans around fitting you in. Or you run into a store 1 minute before closing without thinking of the fact that you'll be delaying the shop assistant from getting home on time, or you say it's only 5 minutes without considering that the assistants may have somewhere else that they need to be. You think that it's okay to be upset or offend other people. You see people who like to keep the peace as weak. You cheat in environments that are based on reciprocity. For example, you ask loads of questions in your favorite internet form, but you don't spend the same amount of time answering other questions. So it's one-sided. It's only your side. When working in groups, you think that you should be the leader or get the most credit. So there's many other examples, and then it gives within this article 5 ways to work on entitlement tendencies. For example, practice of taking perspective. So a recent example of a time that you got mildly annoyed with someone and spend 3 minutes writing out a situation from the other person's perspective. So essentially put yourself in their shoes. What would have you done? How would you have responded? Practice understanding that idea. Sensitize yourself to how good it feels to promote other people's successes. So there's another area of social psychology research called capitalization research, which shows that promoting other people's successes has a positive effect on the sharer. So it's great to see people succeed. It's great to see people get promotion and bonuses and things like that. We should be happy for that. And that changes our mentality and attitude as well to make a project out of it. Try promoting someone else other than yourself for at least a day for 30 days. Another part of this was use cognitive restructuring. And then there was talking about the observe what happens when you curb your entitlement tendencies. Do your relationships run smoother? Do you find it easier for you to sustain relationships without burning other people out? Do you end up feeling less annoyance? Do people end up supporting you more because you support them? So those are some basic things when you curb your entitlement tendencies. It benefits you in a great way by reinforcing some of these changes. And then you catch yourself falling into the moral licensing trap. Was the fifth part of this article. The moral licensing is a cognitive distortion which people intensively justify things that they do that are wrong. And it's very common for people to justify their actions and behavior. So it's like they have the world revolves around them and they can do no wrong. People with entitlement tendencies come in two types. One, those who feel ashamed of their tendencies and feel motivated to change. And then secondly, those who see no reason to change. And if you fit in the former category, don't be too hard on yourself. Expect yourself to put in consistent effort to change your ways, but don't load up on self-criticism, or harsh self-criticism is likely to result in less positive change rather than more. Anyways, we see this mentality in society. We see this mentality affecting so many people in the church these days as well. So this self-entitlement attitude needs to go, and people need to change in the right ways, in the right areas of their life as well. And then finally, some good news. Muslims converting to Christianity by the hundreds in Finland, according to the Christian Post. So hundreds of asylum seekers in the Middle East, including from Iran and Iraq, have converted to Christianity in Finland, according to officials in Finland evangelical Lutheran community. A report of the Finnish media says that conversions are estimated to be several hundred in recent years within the country's evangelical Lutheran church. Converts are from Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and other countries, and the denomination's parishes have established special confirmation classes for the Muslim immigrants seeking to become Christian. The report in Finnish says that about 20 Afghan men are currently attending pre-confirmation classes in this particular parish there in East Finland alone. The teachers are using a New Testament and Dari language, which is spoken in Afghanistan. And one of the converts, Al-Azari Hussein, was said, "I haven't been baptized yet, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure I'll be a good Christian." While some are seeking to convert, cited disillusionment with Islam as the key reason, others said that they felt conversion will help them fit into the Finnish culture. According to Sputnik News, which speculated against the underlying reason that could guard themselves against the possible deportation. So they're assimilating, which is a great thing. In Finland, 1.4 million of the 5.5 million people are members of the Evangelical Lutheran Church. In June 2016 article, The Guardian cited this data: rising Christian church attendance by Muslims across Europe. Trinity Church in Berlin suburbs, for instance, saw its congregation rise from 150 to 700 due to new Muslim converts, while Austrian Catholic Church saw applications for adult baptism swell by nearly 70% in the first 3 months of 2016, the newspaper said. One Iran convert, his 32-year-old Joannes, was, quote, saying, "I found the history of Islam was completely different from what we were taught at school. A religion that began with violence cannot lead people to freedom and love. Jesus Christ says those who use the sword will die by the sword. That has really changed my mind." The article goes on to say that most churches, or more churches in Germany, report the growing phenomena in December 2016, with the Independent noting that the Muslims, especially Iranians, are seeing Christianity as a new chance at freedom. Several Syrian Muslims who fled their way in war-torn country found refuge in Lebanon, also converted to Christianity, according to previous report. In March, there's some other people there in Lebanon who reported he baptized close to 100 Muslim Syrians refugees since the start of the civil war in 2011. The Constitution of Lebanon provides religious freedom. However, thousands are coming to Christ across the Middle East. Voice of Martyrs Canada, which also runs radio shows in the region, said on January. So we're contacting many of our stations in Iraq and have talked with many people who have family in the Middle East. Some of our Middle East broadcasters have shared testimonies about many turning to Christ with us, which they hear directly from listeners when visiting there. And that is so cool to see, just people coming out of darkness and into the light. We need to continue to pray for these new converts, that they continue to grow in their relationship with the Lord, that they keep their eyes on Jesus, that they stay in the Word of God, and they continue to share their faith with as many people as possible. We also need to be praying for these churches, that they take care of these new converts, that we need to pray for the leadership in the church, the pastors and the leaders and the elders. Need to pray for wisdom and direction and discernment, and for them to be filled with the Spirit, and that they can make these people the most loved and best fed sheep possible. Amen. Well, that does it for this episode and today's briefing. Until next time, God bless.